Okay, so I've got the basic modelling coming together for this project now, but I want to make a furniture piece that that I can use repeatedly instead of using the tool we've been looking at mostly so far, which is model in place. So model in place, just to remind you, just going to choose generic models here. And you can see then we get these basic modelling tools, extrusion to swap blend there. So those 5 basic modelling tools, and you've got the same option when you go to voids, you've got those same 5 solid modelling tools. Right, but I'm not going to use those, I'm going to cancel this, because I don't want to have this as a one-off in-place model in this project. I want to make it something that I can use repeatedly, not just in this project, but also in other projects as well. So instead of going to model in place, I'm going to the file menu, and then new, and then family. And so then you're going to see a list of templates that have similar names to that list of categories that comes up when you use model in place. There are a few more options here, but again, it is based around that idea of categories. So the best way to get started is to avoid the ones that have extra things in the name. So for example, if you want to make a casework family, don't start with casework wall-based, just start with metric casework. Right, and so I want to make a piece of furniture, so I'm going to use metric furniture, not metric furniture system. And again, if you wanted to use generic model, if you're not sure what category it should be, generic model's always good. Again, just choose metric generic model, don't choose metric generic model roof-based or line-based. But again, I'm going to start with furniture, so I'm going to use metric furniture, double-click, and I've got a new file. So at first, some people get put off by this because it's a new thing and you've got to make a new file, but it actually makes it easier because you don't have all the other tools to worry about that you don't need. It just gives you the tools that you need to make this family up here, so you can see that this setup's different to what you have in a project. You've got fewer tabs, and you've got fewer tools on this first Create tab as well. So, but again, notice they're the same tools as you have with model in place. You've got extrusion, blend, and so on. So again, I'm going to make a basic table. So I'll start with an extrusion. And I'm going to use, make a circular table just to keep it simple. I'll click on circle, click the center point, and just give my radius. And maybe I want to make that a little bit bigger, so I'll make it maybe 400. And so then before I finish it, I need to think about the height. So I'll make it maybe 600. Oh, sorry, not the start. I'm going to type that in the end. So 600 for the extrusion end. So that's the top of my table. And so then I'm going to make the extrusion start 550. So it starts at 550, it goes up to 600, so that means it's going to be 50 mil deep or thick. So if I finish that now, I've made a simple extrusion, of course, and to see it in 3D, I'll go to my 3D view, and it's showing me nothing, which just means that it's looking somewhere else. So whenever you see something like that, you can just right-click and go to Zoom to Fit, and it'll find everything you've made. And it's going to orbit there, so I can see my table properly, or a tabletop. And so then I'm going to use some of the other modelling tools to make my my leg and the other parts that I need. So, sorry, back to ref level, and then again on the Create tab. So I want to have a tapering base for this. Right, so I'm going to use the blend tool, And then, again, I'm going to draw a circle. Click the intersection point there. And give the size I want the base on the ground to be. So, about that. 160. Maybe I'll make it a bit bigger. Sorry. And then, so the difference with a blend is that you need to click Edit Top to do a second shape. I'll click that. And then I'm just going to draw another circle. So, over in properties there, you can see we've got, instead of start and end, also first, extrusion start and extrusion end, we've got first end and second end, but basically it's the same thing. It's the top and the bottom. So I'm going to leave the first end on 0, and then I'll make the second end 550. So if I finish that, now when I look at it in 3D, we'll see that the base sits on the ground, and the top, because it's the same height as the bottom of this extrusion, that was 550, so of course the top of this now lines up exactly with the base of the table. So it's blending from the bigger circle to the smaller circle. So blend is a good tool obviously for doing tapering shapes, but you can do all sorts of interesting things, so it doesn't need to be necessarily in line or symmetrical. It can be offset. So I can select that blend, and then up the top you can see there you can either go to Edit Top or Edit Base. So I might go to Edit Base, and I'll maybe move that circle over to one side. So you can see the effect of that. Finish it, and now we've got a offset circle. So you can do all sorts of interesting things with that, with blends. The only real limitation with blends in Revit is that the profiles need to be parallel. So in a lot of other 3D modelling programs, you can do blends with shapes that aren't parallel to each other. But in Revit, that's the limitation with this sort of modelling. Right, so you can see there the circle at the top and the bottom are parallel. If you need to do a blend where they're not parallel, you can do it with massing in Revit, but not with this sort of modelling. So that's the basic limitation. Right, so I'm going to undo that though, and get my circle back to the way it was. Right, so there's my basic table, and then in front view, you can see there the edge is obviously square, so I just want to show you a way of putting a rounded edge, and that's a good way of looking at the Revolve tool as well. So back on the Create tab, so the next one there is Revolve. So with Revolve, again, it's all based on this, still this basic idea of a profile. So we've got over here our normal shapes panel, so I'm going to change that to draw an arc with that first arc tool. And I'll just click on the corners there and bring it out to draw my arc. Then I'm going to go back to draw a line just to finish off that shape. So that's my basic rounded edge. And then up the top there you can see it's on boundary line, which is what I used to draw the shape. So now I'm going to change to axis line. And then I'm just going to draw over that centre line in the middle. That's my axis. Tick to finish. And that's going to revolve that profile around the axis. So in 3D, you can see there I've got a nice rounded edge there on my table. Now we can still see the line between the edge and the tabletop. So I'm just going to do one extra little thing, and that's use the join tool, join geometry, and choose that edge, and then the tabletop. And that smooths it out. So if we go to a shaded view, you can see there it's got, again, that nice rounded edge, but it all looks seamless. Alright, so then I'm just going to do one extra thing before I load into the project. I want to set this up so that I can change the materials. So if I select one of those objects, you'll see over in the left in properties, and this is why you want to always leave properties on, because you need to see these things. So here, where it's got the material, where it says by category, we can set a material there. But it's actually not necessary, and at first it's probably just going to make it a bit confusing. If you set the material in here, I'll just click the browse button so you can see why. Right, so notice how we've got a much smaller list of materials. And that comes back to that idea of this being a separate file. So in our project, we've got a much bigger list of materials because that's a different file, and it's got its own materials. So this family file doesn't have as many. And I want to use a material that's in my project anyway, so I don't want to have to make it here again when it's already there in my project. So instead of choosing a material here, which you can do, but I don't want to, I'm going to cancel this. So instead of clicking there to assign the material, I'm going to click on the button next to it. So that blank button there is for your parameters. I don't know. So I'm going to click there, and then down the bottom, just click the new parameter button. So people sometimes get a bit put off by parameters at first, but they're pretty easy. And this is the easiest parameter you can ever make, a material parameter. So when you click on that new parameter button, and then I'm going to call this table leg material, and click OK, and OK again. Then I'm going to select my tabletop, or even the edge, doesn't matter which one you do first. And then again, click that blank button next to material at the end there. And then again, I'm going to click create new parameter down the bottom. And I'll call this table top material. And again, OK. And now I'm going to select the original tabletop. It's not coming up when I go to click on it, so I'm going to use tab, pressing it twice, or oh no, it's all right. Sorry, sorry, I did want to show you this. Let's have to do it this way. Yeah. Now, you don't have to do it. Sorry, because it was joined, it's already assigned it anyway. So over here you can see associate parameter, family parameter. That button there has the two lines on it, which means it's already got a parameter. But what I'll do is actually unjoin, just so you can see how it would be if they weren't joined together. So I can go then to the original extrusion. So if they hadn't been joined, it would have been like this, right? And I would just have to go to there and choose that parameter. So you can have the same parameter used by many different objects. So I want to show you there. And so again, I'll join those two again though. So we can't see anything there for the materials as yet. All I've done is set up parameters for them. And that's the basic idea. So now I'll go and use save as. And I'll save this so you can get to it if you want to have a look at it. So saving it into the Revit library on the P drive and in the furniture folder. And I'll just call it table round taper leg. So then I'm going to click Load into Project. Make sure I tick the right project file, the one that I'm working on, obviously. Okay. And so then it's taking me to a section view, which I don't really want to use. I want to place it in my plan view. So I'm going to go back to one of my floor plans. I'll start with the lower floor, I suppose. And then I'm just going to click on the component button, and you can see it's already there. So it was loaded, and when you go back to the tool, it'll still be there. So now I can just click to place it in my space, and so I might put a couple over near this lounge, and then maybe I want one maybe over here, an example. And we'll go and look in the camera view just so we can see those things. Okay, so obviously we can see those. So, to make it clear why it's so helpful to have a separate family file for these things, you can see there maybe it's a little bit big. So, again, I'm just going to select it. And then up the top you'll get this Edit Family button. So when I click on this, as opposed to Model in Place, if you've done it with Model in Place, you'll get Edit in Place. But if it's a family, again, you'll get Edit Family instead. And when I click the button this time, it's going to take me to that other file. So again, it was probably a bit big, so I'm going to go and select the extrusion. Oops. And it can be a bit tricky when they're joined together. You can see it's making it hard for me to select the extrusion. So again, I'm just going to unjoin geometry temporarily. So that's up in that drop-down list there. So it's easier to select the extrusion. And go to Edit Extrusion, select my circle, and maybe I'll make it 350. Finish it. Maybe that's still too big, so I'll go back and again edit the extrusion. Maybe we'll try 300. Finish it. So yeah, maybe that's the size I want. So I'll then select my Revolve, edit Revolve, and then to work on this, maybe it's easier to go to an elevation view, and I'll just move this profile using the Move tool over to the edge of the table. Finish it, and now that of course follows my tabletop. So I'll join those again. And then maybe now the leg's a little bit too big, so again I'll select that. I'll start with Edit Base, select my circle, and maybe again just make that a bit smaller. And I won't finish this, I'll just go straight to the top and choose Edit Top. And then choose my second circle and make that maybe 40 mil. Yep, that'll be, oh, it's a bit small actually, maybe 50. Yeah. And finish that. So, yeah, actually now I'll look at it, maybe I want the bottom view a bit bigger, so again, that's the great thing with Revit, it's so easy to adjust things. And still not quite right, so I just can't help it, I hate bad design. Yeah, that's about right. So, okay, so I've made my changes. So I'm going to click Save to make sure that's all saved to my separate file before I click Load into Project to load this set of changes back into my project file. And so now I'm just going to choose this option at the top. And if you see this message and you're not sure which option you should use, generally the first one is better. So overwrite the existing version, and all my tables change. So can you see how much easier that is when you've got repeated elements, rather than having to go and edit each one? If I'd done that with Model in Place, I would have had to go and edit each table after I'd copied them, just to change the size. So taking that idea a bit further, again, because they're a loadable family, let's move this over actually, so it's not in the way of the door. Now I can just select any of them, go to Edit Type, and we can see those parameters are set up. So I've got table leg and tabletop. So I'll start with the top. I'll go to, but before I do that, I'll just go back and change the view to realistic so that we can see the colours when I do them. So again, I'm going to select my table, go to Edit Type, and then change the tabletop there, going to Browse, and I'll go and find plastic or laminate type material. Just looking through the list there, let's see what we've got. Yeah, so there's a laminate. Maybe that's not the colour I want, so I'm going to right click on it and duplicate it. And I call it laminate, what do I want? Let's go for green or something. Hardly use green, so that's good. And then the appearance. Don't forget there to think about what you're going to do with the appearance. Usually you want to either duplicate or replace. So here I don't want to use it. I don't need to use replace because I don't need to go to the library. I'm just going to use duplicate. And the important thing there is that you see a 0 above the hand there. So now I'm going to click on the colour and change it just to green, some sort of green. Yep, that should be right. Maybe it's a bit light actually. And then I might change the finish as well to glossy or something. Or polished. No, I think I'll go with glossy. Okay, so then I'll go back to the graphics tab and just use render appearance so it's got the same colour there. Click OK, OK, and all of my tables change. Again, because they're all from the one family. So if I want to change the colour of the legs, same thing. I can just select one of them, Edit Type, and there's my leg parameter. So I can click Browse there, and I'm just going to use the same material. So I'm going to choose that laminate green, click OK, and again, all the tables change together. So again, that's why Revit is the way it is, because it's set up to manage objects, and again, most of the tools are for managing large collections of objects more efficiently than in, say, programs like SketchUp or even those other 3D programs I was mentioning. So that's really all I wanted to show you, and we'll have a look at sweep blends, and well, we've already done sweeps, so that's pretty much all the modelling tools. I'll just go back to modelling place just so you can see the list again. Okay, so we've looked at extrusions, of course, plenty of times. Blends I've just done, revolves we've done, and sweeps we did with the roof. So if anyone I haven't shown you a swept blend, I will show you that at some point, but honestly it's the least useful. And if you want to do something like that, usually you'll find there are better modelling tools than Revit for that sort of complex geometry. Swept blend's a bit of an ordinary tool actually, but I will show it to you. It's good for some things, but again, if you're looking at that level of complexity, then maybe you've got to think about a different modelling approach anyway. So the most important ones are the ones I've shown you: extrusion, blend, revolve, and sweep. Again, I'll show you swept blend sometime. And then also remember you've got voids, which we haven't looked at that much, but always remember that's an option. So you can get really complex results by combining different solids as both, solids which you get from here, and then voids which of course subtract from those shapes. So that's it. So just to give out when you should be using model in place, and when you should think about making, again, a loadable family. And so all of the things you've been placing from the library so far are loadable families that have been made just like what I just showed you. So the doors, the windows, and anything else in the library. So all of the things there in all the plumbing folders, the toilets and the sinks, all of those things have been made that way. They're all just solid models. So hopefully that'll give you some ideas. And again, it can also help when you look at families that you download. So when you go to download families from these different sites we've been looking at, Revit City and so on, and of course all the manufacturer sites, as you've probably been finding, not all of those families work perfectly, and so you will often need to go and adjust them. And actually maybe that's something I will just show you very quickly, because we've got some here that we can look at, or sorry, on the outside it's probably easier to see. Yeah, okay, so this one here, you can see that door on the outside has an architrave. And that's not really appropriate for the exterior side, and even on the interior side you might not want it. So now that we know a bit about families, you can always select any families you've loaded, and then again click Edit Family to go to the file that it's come from. And I'm not going to make anything new, I'm just going to select the things that are there that I don't want and delete them. So you can see there it told us that was just an extrusion, but I'm going to delete it. Notice over here that's got a parameter assigned, but we don't care about that, I'm just going to delete it. And then on the inside I'll delete it from there as well. I'm not going to worry about saving this file, I'm just going to click Load into Project. Make sure my project's ticked, click OK, and then again choose that first option there to overwrite the existing version. And yeah, when you get this message, just click OK, and there we are. It had a problem with the, because of what I just did, it's got a problem with that suite, so that's a different issue. Well, maybe what I'll show you then is we can fix that if I select the door, and then obviously it worked taking the architrave off, but I don't really want to use this door anymore, so I'm going to go to Edit Type, and another good thing to know is that you can just click Load there, and then choose a different family. So the other one I've actually set up for this project is this one here, the first one in the list there, 2018 traditional entry panel door with fan light. There we are. So try and have a go at making a family or two in a separate file of their own, and see how the management works and how you can load them into your own projects. And that'll help you not just with your own families that you'll make, but also any that you download and find that other people have made and that you might need to adjust. And if you're wondering about the best way to learn all the other things in Revit, families really are the central thing in Revit. You'll see later, everything pretty much in Revit is a family. So once you understand how to make those loadable families, you'll be able to do most things in Revit.